So as the vice president of arguably the largest educational union in the state of California, I think it's imperative that that we begin to engage in a more in-depth part of the struggle for ethnic studies. I'm in an awkward kind of position in that I am a Chicano Studies faculty member and a Chicana in leading a union that's predominantly white teachers. I do think that it's a different time than when I began to engage in this battle for ethnic studies. I actually started my work in the university as a student leader of the Asian Black and Chicano Pride program, where we developed curriculum in ethnic studies and taught it in LA. So we were a number of volunteers at Cal State LA who said, no, they're not going to do it, we're going to do it. And so we studied Paulo Freire, and we developed lesson plans, and we went into schools in the East Side 1 hour a week to teach Chicano studies to students. That was decades ago. And it was in an attempt to establish ethnic studies in K-12 settings, in classrooms that were predominantly students of color. It didn't take then. You know, at best we had isolated studies of celebration of multicultural history, but nothing authentic and nothing in depth, nothing that legitimized our voice in social studies or in history or in science or in math, where we can be infused. CTA supports the struggle for ethnic studies. We've passed several resolutions and several new business items calling for support of the struggle in ethnic studies. The National Education Association has provided awards to folks who do this work. As individuals, we're working in school districts now with our teachers to make sure that they not only pass resolutions in this area, but that they begin to engage in the development of curriculum. That's where it's lacking. I think the other place that it's lacking is that we have several folks in ethnic studies who are not necessarily in education and in colleges of education. And often those that are called to work with teachers are those who've had the strongest relationship, and they're usually in teacher education programs. They're not in ethnic studies. So I think it's incumbent upon us as educators to bring all of those voices to the table in the development of this curriculum, that we engage teachers who have been instrumental in the struggle for ethnic studies from the very beginning. When we were battling for ethnic studies in colleges and universities, classroom teachers were asking for the same thing. They wanted teacher education programs that focused on issues on ethnic studies and multicultural education. So it's a parallel universe that we're negotiating and actually beginning to establish it. So I think where we are now is, one, begin to pass resolutions that establish ethnic studies, and unfortunately I think it's going to be on a local level, district by district. It won't happen on a statewide level until there's a mass movement that begins to create this call. Once the district does say, you're right, we need to have ethnic studies as a graduation requirement, which in and of itself is kind of a dilution of real Asian, Black, Chicano, American, Indian, African American studies, because it kind of blends the entire thing. So that's a compromise that is not the most ideal when you're a faculty member in that discipline, but it's what we have now. So the first step is pass the resolution. The second step, which is even more important, is who you bring to the table to actually to begin to develop that curriculum. And that should be classroom teachers, that should be, where appropriate, students, faculty in ethnic studies, and faculty in colleges of education, to begin to develop the curriculum. The third thing is to train classroom teachers and to ensure that the teachers who are teaching ethnic studies have a base and a foundation in that discipline. Everyone has to take a multicultural ed course. Not everyone who takes that multicultural ed course in a teacher education program is tooled or schooled or skilled enough to teach the ethnic studies course. We need to make sure that it isn't the teacher who doesn't have a class in their discipline who then has said, oh, okay, now you can teach ethnic studies because you took 3 classes in multiculturalism. That the person who is teaching it and who develops the curriculum is trained, is provided the professional development that they need to make sure that they're delivering the best quality ethnic studies course that's possible for our students.